As the doctor conducts his examinations and makes his cryptic remarks about folklore, Laura becomes more convinced that Carmilla is involved in her strange illness. She cannot deny the way Carmilla's presence seems to coincide with her most vulnerable moments, the feelings of weakness that creep over her whenever Carmilla is near, and the strange dreams that continue to plague her. The connection between the two women deepens, and while Laura feels both fear and fascination, she begins to wonder if she is being slowly consumed by Carmilla's power. The fact that Carmilla appears to have no outward signs of illness, while Laura is gradually wasting away, only heightens the eerie, supernatural quality of the situation. Laura becomes more introspective, her thoughts increasingly consumed by the idea that Carmilla is not simply an eccentric guest or an innocent companion. Carmilla is something more, and Laura's growing suspicion that Carmilla might be a vampire, albeit a vampire who doesn't yet fully reveal her nature, is terrifying and inescapable. The doctor offers cryptic advice to Laura and her father, warning them to be cautious. While he does not openly declare the possibility of a supernatural affliction, he alludes to the existence of legends and ancient fears that cannot be dismissed outright. His words create an atmosphere of mounting anxiety and foreshadow the terror to come. The doctor's reluctance to directly confront Laura and her father with the possibility of a supernatural cause reflects a broader tension between rational medical science and the older, darker beliefs that persist in the background. He is not ready to give voice to the frightening implications of his thoughts, but the mention of a female vampire lingers in the air, adding to the overall atmosphere of suspense and horror. Carmilla deepens the mystery surrounding Laura's illness and further develops the eerie connection between her and Carmilla. The family doctor's investigation and his hints at supernatural causes add a layer of unease and tension to the story. While the doctor remains hesitant to fully confront the supernatural possibilities, his cryptic remarks suggest that Laura's affliction may be the result of something far darker than a simple medical condition. As Laura's symptoms worsen and her connection with Carmilla becomes more intense, the reader is drawn further into the psychological and supernatural horror of the narrative. The doctor's visit and his warnings set the stage for the increasing horror that will unfold as the true nature of Carmilla's intentions becomes clearer. Laura's health has worsened to the point that she can no longer ignore the reality of her condition. She grows more desperate as she continues to feel weaker and more drained, her days filled with the oppressive sense that something malevolent is lurking just beyond the surface of her consciousness. Despite the family doctor's efforts to provide her with remedies, nothing helps. Laura is increasingly aware that Carmilla is the key to understanding what is happening to her. Yet, despite her fear, Laura cannot tear herself away from Carmilla. There is a strange, magnetic pull that keeps her tethered to the enigmatic and beautiful woman, despite the growing sense of terror that accompanies every interaction. Carmilla's presence is both a source of fascination and dread, something that makes it increasingly difficult for Laura to confront her own situation. The first true revelation comes when Laura begins to piece together more about Carmilla's true identity. It begins with a seemingly innocuous comment from Carmilla herself during a casual conversation. One night, while they are alone, Carmilla speaks cryptically about her past and her lineage. She hints that her family history is shrouded in mystery, but that it is also eternal in nature. She speaks of her great age, and alludes to the fact that she has lived many lives over the centuries, always seeking new victims. Carmilla's words chill Laura to the bone, as they begin to align more with the local legends she has heard whispered in the town. The idea that Carmilla has been alive for centuries, feeding on the blood of others, becomes more than just a passing idea. It takes root in Laura's mind as she recalls old stories about creatures who cannot age and who live off the vitality of others. The connection between these stories and Carmilla's strange behavior becomes impossible to ignore. In one particularly eerie moment, Laura watches Carmilla's eyes in the dim light of the room, noticing the unnatural gleam in them, an unearthly hunger. Carmilla's beauty is no longer enchanting, but disturbing, as it is tied to something unnatural. The seeds of suspicion have been sown, and Laura is finally forced to confront the horrifying possibility that Carmilla is not who she claims to be. As Laura reflects on Carmilla's words and behavior, she begins to seek out the truth about her family's past. She remembers stories from her childhood, tales told by her governess, as well as folklore passed down by the servants and villagers about the region. These stories spoke of blood-drinking creatures, of beings who lived for centuries, preying upon the living in order to sustain their eternal lives. The name, vampire, is not used directly in the stories, but the traits described fit the legends perfectly. Laura's family, as it turns out, has a dark history that she has never fully understood. Her father, though reluctant to speak of it, begins to reveal troubling details about the family's ancestral line. There have been instances in the past where members of her family, specifically women, have mysteriously died under unexplained circumstances. These deaths often involved symptoms very similar to the ones Laura is experiencing: paleness, weakness, a loss of vitality. Her father alludes to the idea that something ancient and evil has haunted their bloodline for generations, but he refuses to acknowledge what this truly means. Laura's investigation into her family's history leads her to discover that her mother's side of the family has had ties to old aristocratic families in the region, families with histories of tragic deaths and strange illnesses that have always been linked to the vampire legends. This growing connection between the tragic history of Laura's ancestors and the vampire-like creatures of the region deepens the sense of inevitability. Laura begins to fear that she is the latest victim in a long, cursed line of women who have fallen prey to these creatures. Laura's investigation reaches its peak when she discovers a hidden portrait of a woman who appears strikingly similar to Carmilla. The portrait is old, faded, and locked away in a dusty corner of the family estate, overlooked by everyone. The woman in the portrait has an unsettling resemblance to Carmilla, and the familial connection is undeniable. Laura's father confirms that the woman in the portrait is indeed a distant relative, one who was believed to have died young under mysterious circumstances. Upon further research, Laura uncovers a troubling link. This woman, whose name was Mircalla, was rumored to have been part of an ancient and noble family known for their association with the supernatural. The records tell of Mircalla's tragic and untimely death, which coincides with several other deaths in the region, deaths that share disturbing similarities to Laura's own symptoms. The discovery of the portrait is a pivotal moment in the chapter. It serves as the first physical piece of evidence linking Carmilla to the ancient vampire bloodline, solidifying Laura's suspicions and making it impossible for her to deny the truth any longer. The strange similarity between Carmilla and Mircalla is not a coincidence, it is a direct connection between the two women, stretching across centuries. The final revelation comes when Laura confronts Carmilla directly. Unable to ignore the mounting evidence and her growing dread, Laura demands the truth from Carmilla, who responds in a cryptic yet chilling manner. Carmilla admits to her true identity as a vampire, a creature of darkness that has existed for centuries, feeding off the life force of young women. She reveals that her true name is, indeed, Mircalla, and that she has been using different names and disguises over the years to hide her true nature. The vampire curse, she claims, is passed down through generations, and she has become one of the ancient undead who is doomed to feed eternally on human blood. Carmilla explains that her arrival at the estate was no accident. She had chosen Laura as her next victim long before they had even met, drawn to her vulnerability and her family's dark history. Carmilla's obsession with Laura was not a coincidence, but a predestined attraction. Laura is the latest in a long line of women who have fallen prey to Carmilla's thirst. Carmilla's revelation is chilling. Her calm demeanor, almost affectionate in its delivery, contrasts with the horrific nature of the truth she has just revealed. She speaks of the passing centuries with a detached amusement, her eternal life no longer a curse, but a privilege. To Carmilla, the idea of feeding off humans, of draining their vitality, is natural, even pleasurable. For Laura, this moment is the breaking point. She is trapped in a nightmare, unable to escape from Carmilla's hold. The knowledge that her health has been gradually drained by a vampire only amplifies the horror she feels, as the connection between the dream-like visions she has experienced and the reality of her condition becomes undeniable. In the aftermath of these revelations, Laura's father and the family doctor begin to investigate more seriously, now fully aware that something unnatural is at work. The doctor, who had previously hesitated to confront the supernatural elements, begins to take action. He consults local folklore and begins to piece together a strategy to rid the estate of Carmilla's malevolent influence. While the doctor is still cautious, he realizes that only through direct confrontation with the vampire can they hope to save Laura. Together, Laura's father and the doctor work to prepare a plan to confront Carmilla and end the terror she has wrought on their family. They seek guidance from local sources, who speak of old rituals and weapons that can be used to banish a vampire. The suspense builds, as the family braces for the confrontation that will either destroy Carmilla or doom Laura to a fate worse than death.